Mr. Anthony Feliciano, welcome to Value Stack Podcast.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you for having me today. Appreciate it.
Man, this is number 35, I think, or 34. We're in the triple digits. Well, no, that's not how numbers work. We're starting off really strong, bro. Luckily, computers only know 0 and 1. So, yeah, man, it's nice. It's a nice, what is it? Denver. We're in Denver, Colorado. It's the 18th of February.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty nice time in this time of year. And,
got a nice day for it out there. It's hitting the 50s now after we had this weeks of snow. So yeah, it's actually a nice little change.
I wore a t-shirt yesterday. Well, I wear a t-shirt every day, but like usually I wear stuff on top of the t-shirts.
Yeah.
Fun fact. And yeah, dude, it was nice yesterday. And on top of that, it's been nice like in the Bitcoin markets too. I mean, shoot, like it's been almost a month since I recorded the last episode. We're kind of got a backlog in editing, but I think the price was like definitely below 20K.
Yeah,
last time I recorded.
Definitely a month ago. Yeah,
and we're at like 25. I mean, price doesn't matter, but okay.
We all look at the price.
Yeah.
No matter what anybody tells you, they're lying.
Yeah. Price doesn't matter when it's going down. Price very much matters when it's going up. Like, come on, we're all counting how many Lambos we're gonna buy.
Yeah,
but I can't buy them with Lightning yet, so
we got to work on that.
Yeah, that's right.
Gotta reach out to them. I'm sure they're anxious to get that.
We went to the Porsche dealer the other day, dude, and I asked the guy like kind of like sarcastically, I was like, "Oh, can I pay in Bitcoin?" And he was like, "First off, you can't afford to be here, sir." And I was like, "You don't know." All of this was unspoken communication, by the way. Like, but yeah, he was like, "Dude, why are you my Porsche dealer?"
I can show you my Bitcoin balance sheet.
He's like, "I don't know how many Bitcoin you got, but I know you're not doing good right now." Again, he said none of that, but it's amazing what you can tell in nonverbal communication.
That's funny.
Well, I guess we should talk about Bitcoin stuff. I mean, we kind of are. We're moseying in, segueing in.
Well, if we're going to hyper Bitcoinization, then we got to buy something with it.
That's right. Well, I mean, right. Like, what's it, we talked about that in the last episode, kind of. It's like, yeah, there's a great point in like acquiring Bitcoin, especially at the low prices, but also you still have to remember, like, why am I buying it, right? Because at the end of the day, like, it's just money.
Yeah.
And if you're obsessed with accumulating Bitcoin, you probably have a bigger, deep-seated issue, which is like you're obsessed with money in the first place, and you've maybe lost sight of where like the real purpose is, which is what you can get with money and the things you can do with it, right? So
that's how we live every day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, it's about family, community, making the world a better place, all these things,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, I know that it hits so many different people, like what like Bitcoin can affect, right? So like one of the things you've done and focused on more so is like the business, like merchant side, right? Because like, and specifically the Lightning Network. So like the last episode was with Rick, who was a 3D printer, runs a 3D printer shop, right?
Yeah.
And the guest before that was Ben, who's like a wine merchant. So I think it actually kind of ties into his especially where he's a vendor out here accepting Bitcoin for his services, goods and services. And that's what it's all about, right? It's not about the numbers on the screen. How many dollars do I have? Because you've missed the point entirely if you're worried about what my dollars or, what my Bitcoin are worth.
Yeah.
So maybe like, I guess like we could start talking about like how you got into Bitcoin and furthermore, like how Lightning, like, because it seemed you got into, like, we met about on like Lightning chats really early, dude.
And we met in one of the meetups here in Denver a couple of years ago, like it's like December time frame, because it was cold. It was actually snow on the ground. We were outside by the fire pit, right. One of the breweries in this neighborhood. I forget where it was, but yeah, it was a couple of years ago, before pre-pandemic stuff.
I mean, it was before. It was like it was pre-Amboss.
Definitely.
That's how it's like.
Yeah.
The Lightning Network forever changed when Amboss.space was created. Not sponsored, but could be
eventually.
Christopher.
We met right before that. You were one of the first guys that I actually met here in Denver that actually had a good understanding of Lightning Network and how to use it and setting up channels. Because a lot of through the meetups, most of the guys were just they stack the Bitcoin, they have it. Some guys don't run nodes, they just kind of keep it in cold storage. That's a majority of the Bitcoiners that we, meet out here, even to this day, is who we meet out here. But now you have a lot more who starting to get into the node development. They run their own nodes, or they, you know, experimenting with Lightning, you know, opening up channels. So they're getting more hands-on. But 3 years ago, for like probably even 4, like I said, either 2018 and 2019 when we met, like you were the only guy I met at any of the meetups that actually had a clue about Lightning, you know, and at least setting up channels. So like that's how we first connected was through that, actually.
I mean, it's because of Justifer, dude. It's literally all him.
Oh yeah, I being in his Telegram group too, I learned a lot from him early on too with the channel. He was very helpful.
Was it Ellen Balanced Channels, dude?
Yeah,
Fiat Hoff, and I think that's how you say it. Gosh, that was like, dude, that was 2020. Like the Lightning Network, there were so few nodes. Like I feel like I knew most of the nodes, like the node operators on the network back then, dude. It's kind of wild.
It was wild back then. So yeah, it obviously it's grown in the 4 years. You know, since the time we use it, there's, you know, a lot more Bitcoin on there now. I think they just hit like almost 5,500 Bitcoin on there.
Right, which is, I mean, that's probably doubled then, since it was, I think it was like in the thousands, like maybe between 1 and 2,000 Bitcoin capacity.
Yeah, so it wasn't much back then, but now it's like it's really getting there. But it's still nothing compared to,
it's still nothing. Right?
It's still nothing when you see like transfers of like, you watch, you know, transactions through the blockchain and stuff like that, and movement of Bitcoin. Like this guy's moving more than 6,000, 10,000 Bitcoin. Like that's the Lightning Network, right? In a single transaction.
In a single transaction.
Yeah, they're moving that many Bitcoin.
FTX had more IOU Bitcoin than the whole Lightning Network. Yeah. Like multiple times over.
Yeah. And that it just shows you pales in comparison to what, you know, the knowledge of that still being early, the Lightning Network, other than just the hardcore guys who like to use it, but it just shows you on the scale that it's not even close.
So that really makes you an early adopter, that when you put it in that perspective, like there were like 15 people on the Lightning Network then, and like one of them was async.
Yeah, that was the big, I think that may still be the biggest node, them and Alex Bosworth, his node, because he kind of got a lot, I think a lot of people into Lightning, seeing how to run proper node, how to balance channels. You know, they use his tools to balance his Satoshis.
Right. Not to be confused with the first 3 letters of his name.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I asked him about. Dude, it was so early. We were so early on Lightning Bitcoin, like that scene. Yeah. That like I had tons of conversations with Alex Bosworth, like asking him how to like double spend a stale Lightning channel. Like I'm like, bro, like the mempool's full.
Yeah,
my channel hasn't confirmed. Like, oh, what do I do?
That's the way it was back then. Yeah. We were learning it very early, and it wasn't much out there. So now when we come to today, 2023, like you see, a lot more merchants like the ones you guys you just mentioned, that they'll take payments in Lightning. They'll take for the goods and services. So it shows you just how much it's evolved just in the, in those couple of years.
I was like, man, you know what would be a really good idea? A company that literally just runs nodes as a service, and then Voltage keep them out.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, Voltage.
I was like, oh shit, dude.
Yeah. So they did that. So yeah, we are early on. I agree in the Lightning step. There's a lot of criticism against Lightning. It's still kind of reckless because you can still. You can still, lose your funds. Like I guess a lot of people don't realize that what you see the Bitcoin, it's your Bitcoin out there. Like you're putting it up out there to open up the channels. Like
right.
So when you see a node that has, let's say 10 Bitcoin, that's 10 real Bitcoin. This isn't This isn't like something fake. Like that's actual real. So if they lose it or something happens,
in a hot wallet.
In a hot wallet, exactly. Whether it be a hack or if the the databases get corrupt or something like that. Like there's a chance they lose in the sense that the channels close and the funds get dispersed. Like it just gets, from forced closures and channels, it goes to your peers and things kind of stuff. It's not truly lost per se. It's just you lose it from the fees because all of a sudden the forced
closes get you, especially like right now too. When you're, like the ordinal the inscriptions are bringing it back, bringing back the mempool,
maxing out. Yeah,
it's clear. It's purging things like at 1 sat per byte.
Yeah. So like that's where your money gets eaten up too. So like again, it's weird. So you take your Bitcoin, you stake it, you open a channel, and then like something happens and you close. It's like you're not creating more Bitcoin when you go to the Lightning. Well, I think a lot of people have a misconception like, oh, we're like fractional reserve like Lightning. No,
you're leasing it. It's like inventory.
Yeah,
like exactly. You can only sell as much channel capacity as Bitcoin you own.
Yeah, and whatever you put there is what you have there. That's it. Like you may collect in fees. So when you decide you don't want to run anymore and you close some channels, like all you're doing is like almost a Rob Peter to pay Paul. Like we you route through me, I get some fees from you, and I close. Okay, so I started with 1 Bitcoin, now I have 1.5, but like it doesn't change the total number of Bitcoin out there. It doesn't affect the supply of Bitcoin. Right. It's just a shift. It's just a shift in where the money went. And I think that's part of the education for people to understand with Lightning is just what it really is. It's not, you're not creating anything like new Bitcoin out of it. You're just taking what you have, using it, and getting the fees for routing or whatever you may be doing.
So like obviously it's hard for a lot of people that are early on. I mean, really for anyone, it's hard to understand Bitcoin at first. And teaching someone Lightning, I mean, first off, Lightning was crucial to me debunking a lot of the altcoin theses that I believed before. When I understood that Lightning could scale Bitcoin and layers, like the concept of layers, because I was also kind of learning about the TCP/IP model with the application layer, transmission layer, the what is it called, the OSI model. When I was learning about that at the same time, and I was like, oh, there's layers to this shit, and it clicked, and so I was like, okay, Lightning is crucial, and that's why I got so gung-ho about it, right? Because I was like, this is so important to Bitcoin succeeding, and all of these altcoins are like, oh, it's too slow, it's not secure, whatever, I can't print JPEGs on it. Now you can. Inscription number 265. Don't forget. Forever.
No, I'm saying, I had one done for me too. I think it's number 344, I think.
Dude, they're going to be, I mean, so like, funny. Who's going to buy it? I mean, the one, number 300 something sold for like $50,000 the other day. Who's going to buy it? Probably no one, because it says Value Stack Podcast, but like, like I was there. Like, and even if someone does buy it, it still says I was there, not you. So, or like not anybody else. It's like, cool. If you want to own the proof that I was there, that's fine. Like, we'll see who's got the last laugh. But no, like, so anyway, Lightning was like super crucial for me, like understanding because I did think, I was like, well, I mean, like, a billion people can't use the base layer. But then I was like, oh, base layer is the settlement layer for institutions, and like Lightning is. And so anyway, long way of asking a question, but how, like, what was it about Lightning that clicked? Was it similar? Like, how did that stand out to you? Because it's like hard to even get Bitcoin, much less understand Lightning.
I think what it was, if you remember, like, if you truly believe Bitcoin being that peer-to-peer, system to actually conduct business for goods or service, whatever it may be. If you look back 5 years ago, like the mempool, everything was really done on the base layer, right? So you had, like you said, you had the big blocks, the fees were high, and you had the waiting times, right? So like, it wasn't bad. It was slow, like, and then you paid a lot for the fees. So that's why Lightning came about. And when I kind of saw it as like, now I can do these transactions for cheaper in terms of fees. It is quicker and you see it, it's all settling, on the second layer, all the transactions are going through. And then when channels eventually close, it all falls back to layer 1, right? But like, it was just, for me, it was like, okay, now I can actually pay someone and they don't have to stand there by the, next to the terminal for 10 minutes waiting for a confirmation that, because the vendor doesn't know, the merchant doesn't know, like, did I get paid? Well, it says that, the block was the transaction was broadcast, but now I'm just waiting for it to get through the pool.
And in theory, they could have double spent it, right? This is why John Carvalho was like talking about the full RBF being an issue. And this may be getting too deep into but like, that's so like, you saw Lightning as a solution for merchants to stop that double spend and lower fees.
The lower fees and the waiting time for them. Like, they see they get paid and they're paid. Like, there's no confirmation blocks waiting for it. Like, like it's
which is a no-brainer. Like, oh, hold on, let me wait 10 minutes. That's a step in the wrong direction.
But that's what you think about.
No user's going to adopt that.
And that's what you think about years ago. That's what it kind of was like, right? For a lot of merchants. So like, then you saw the light. So that's how I kind of got into the Lightning. It was like, okay, so what is this? Like, why is layer 2 better than layer 1, right? Oh, okay, this is why. Now I could just pay and I could send, or even just send you a transaction, send you an invoice, send you sats. We're done. Like, that's it. We go about our business. We're not standing there like, well, did you get it?
I don't know. Did it confirm? Oh, Binance just did a UTXO consolidation.
And then like, you look at like what happened, what you call it? Like, a lot of times early on too, Lightning failed in the sense there wasn't enough nodes, there wasn't enough routes, there wasn't enough payments, there wasn't a lot of channels, a lot of liquidity flowing around, so you had a lot of failures.
Failed payments
was massive back then too. So like, yes, it was a step up over layer 1, but layer 1 you knew you were going to get paid. It may have taken you longer, maybe 10 minutes, you didn't get in the first block, maybe 20 minutes later, but you were going to get that transaction. You were going to get, as a merchant, you were going to get it. Lightning, you can sit there, early on, stand there 10 times sending the same payment, and you get failed transactions, can't find a route. No, some kind of error, then it just, it turned a lot of people off. Those who stuck with it, they made better products and they made better solutions and better UI. We have more people coming into it. So it's gotten a lot better in the last 4 years that now when we do transactions, it's, they pretty much go through. There's still a failure rate on certain things, but for the most part, they do go through. You're not standing there like an idiot, like, I can't pay, but my Lightning channel's down or something. My node's down. Like, it's not that case anymore.
There is right. So there's trade-offs. Like, there are certain types of cases where on-chain, I think, makes more sense. Like in a case where it's a very large transaction, right? Because Lightning is a volume-based fee, right? It's like a
kind of like you said, you're right on the right path. Capacity based on the channels where you can send in and out. So there is some, there's that, limitations where the layer one there isn't. If you want to send 1,000 Bitcoin, you can send 1,000 Bitcoin.
Right.
Nothing's going to stop
but
that.
It's also the fee too, right? Like if I'm sending 1,000 Bitcoin, it's not a percentage based fee. It's a flat fee based on the like UTXO account and stuff. So with Lightning, it's more appropriate for smaller payments.
Absolutely. A few $100 here and there. Like, I think in time it'll eventually grow where you can start doing $1,000 payments. And I think if you see the bigger nodes out there, like the Kraken has their nodes, Strike has their stuff. Like, they have private channels probably going back and forth to provide the liquidity that they need, that you and
for business operations.
For business operations, that keeps, and that's where they'll keep going. They'll do that. Like, we can't just open channels to some of those nodes because
I tried. Yeah, they were like, nah, bro.
Kraken took some because I opened a channel to them to provide liquidity when they first came on. I haven't tried it since. Yeah. So like it drained my channel, which was fine. But like it showed that I gave liquidity I provided to Kraken. They used it, and then eventually we closed the channel. But like there's certain other bigger companies, like they just won't, like if you open a channel, they'll just, like you said, they'll say
they'll
no.
Close it, or they have a setting in there that like doesn't even automatically denies it before you can even try.
Exactly. So, but it doesn't stop me and you from opening a channel and sending these micro payments back and forth to each other.
That's that peer-to-peer element that you were referring to earlier.
So like we could do that, and with other people and our nodes connected to other nodes, we could still find a route. We don't have to go through the big players of the LSP providers. We can actually find other routes through other nodes that can facilitate these smaller payments and still do our business. Like, that's kind of the beauty of it. Like, there is a worry that some of the, recently they talk about like the centralization of the Lightning Network. That's a lot of people it's being centralized. It's not really being centralized per se. Like, no one still owns the Lightning. You may have a big node on there. You may provide a lot of liquidity, but it's still layer 2. You and I can still use it. We don't have to use those nodes. You know what I mean? We don't have to buy, a channel from like BitRefill or LN Big or something like that, or any other liquidity service. We don't have to do that. We can open our own channels. Now, it costs more for us to put our own Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. So so that's your trade-off, right? If I want 1 Bitcoin worth of sats to be able to use on Lightning, I have to put up 1 Bitcoin. If I just want to open channels, I could buy a channel from a liquidity service provider for like, let's say a million Bitcoin for like $20, right? That's all I need. That's my skin in the game. This is the $20 that I need to buy that channel. But if I want, 10 channels of 0.1 and I'm using my Bitcoin, now that's my Bitcoin. I have a larger stake in the game. That's kind of like the trade-off. Like, I got started by just buying these little channels in the beginning because I wasn't really connected with peers yet and people, like friends, like, hey, you want to open up a balance channel? Okay, let's do 1 million sats, right? But like, to get the payments in for myself and test everything that I was working on early on was, all right, well, I just need a provider that filled that.
Right. They did the Thor channels.
Yeah, the Thor channel. So I could buy, 1 million sat channel for like $10-15, whatever it was. And that's all it was. And like, that's all it cost me. I didn't have to put up 1 million sats to get, but now I had the access to the network, and people could send, I could do other tests from other nodes, and I would get the payments.
Right, getting that inbound liquidity is massive. And that was like one of the biggest challenges early on in the Lightning Network was like because you need inbound liquidity in order to receive payments, and
you need outbound,
which basically someone has to agree to lock up their Bitcoin to you.
Yeah,
and outbound liquidity is I'm agreeing to lock up my Bitcoin to someone else and provide that service, not necessarily altruistically, right? Like you said, you did that to Kraken. I'm sure you charged a high fee for them draining that channel. So So yeah, I mean, it's like, but it's getting better, right? So it's like there are more nodes that are kind of connected, like we're all 7 degrees away from Kevin Bacon type thing, where there's 6 degrees.
6 degrees.
Damn.
It's all right.
6 degrees from one day I'm gonna get smooth, man. But like so it's getting more reliable, and then because of that, the fees are getting more competitive too, right? Where it's like you can't just gouge, or I'll go open a channel to someone else and get it through them.
Yeah, like you said, like the more more peer to peer that like me, you do, and other closer people, like we keep our fees low, right? We're not charging like that. But if I was to provide Kraken or essentially provide it to a bigger
to the sinks, to the sinks, liquidity sinks,
yeah, I might charge a little bit more for that. So it is a lot of game theory in that sense, but. I think new people who want to explore Lightning, like they just think like, oh, I have a node and I have Lightning. I get paid. Like you still need to open. You have to understand you got to have some inbound channels, and you have to open up outbound channels too. Like you still need both sides. So a lot of people think like, oh, I got Lightning. Why can't I get a payment? And like then they get frustrated. Lightning sucks. I can't get a payment. Well, do you have like there's still a huge education gap of learning for these people to get onto like, you got to get inbound. You just can't like, oh, I have.
Okay. Well, okay. So that kind of leads me into my next question, which is like, obviously you work with merchants, and like, that's a big part of your, like what you do with Crypto Beer Kings, and we'll get into that. And like, but like you had said like the light bulb for Lightning was kind of with the merchant payment side. So how do you get merchants to understand, like if you go to a merchant and they're like, wait, you want me to accept Bitcoin? Like, wait, what's Lightning? Like how do you guide them through that? Or do you just take them straight to Lightning and explain on chain later? Like,
it's more the approach. I don't even talk the technicalities. I build a whole demo for them. I essentially take, when I walk into like a lot of merchants, like if they have like an online marketplace, I'll build a web page and I'll take their products and I'll show them what it looks like. So it's not like, hey, I'll come back again and show you what it looks like. I'm showing them their products as a web page, and then showing you, hey, look, this is how you can take Bitcoin. So I don't even mention Lightning. I don't even talk like literally technical difficulties of it. I just like, you're getting Bitcoin payments. I don't even say what the rails are. It's you're getting Bitcoin for your products, right? And I take them through a whole point of sale system. Like the customer picks A, B, C. You hit checkout. This QR code is going to pop up. They're going to take out their phone and they're going to pay, and boom, that's it. And so they're more impressed by that. Like I don't even get into the tech unless they have questions and they really want to know. Then I'll explain it to them. But most of them don't. They're just like, oh, okay, that's it. That's all I have to do to get payments. Like, yeah, that's it.
Right.
And then I help you set up for your wallets and how you get extrapolate the back end of it. But for what they see it on the front side, like that's it. I'm like, yeah, that's it. There really isn't much you have to do.
So maybe walk me through like how do you kind of 30,000 foot view? Like how do you approach merchants, and like how do you market this to them? Kind of explain, like if I was like a brewer, like because you do like bars and stuff, right? Yeah. It's like how are you how are you giving them are you just paying them on chain after, or like how's this working for them?
Early on for a lot of the demos it was just a bar tab. So it was just my credit card for them, because they didn't want no one, I haven't yet met bars that just jump in head first, like, yeah, let's set this up tomorrow. Unless they've been in Bitcoin, they have a real deep understanding, and they just never took the steps to do it, right? So unless they really have like, yeah, I want to do this, they want to see it, they want to see what it looks like, how it operates, how it interacts with their system, which it doesn't right now. It's really two systems. Like they have the traditional point of sale, and then they have the Bitcoin system. Right. Eventually it's going to merge with Strike and what they're doing with their
block
and
Cash App,
and Square and all that stuff. It eventually will come into that, but so right now it's just more separate. So yeah, essentially it's just the bar tab that I'll run for the night, so this way they get paid and they're not worried I'm stiffing them on a bill or something like that, right? But then we spend Bitcoin, and essentially I'm just collecting it just to hold, just to, for transactions. So when you guys, in the few minutes we did, people were spending, through Strike or Cash App, whatever, Lightning, I'm just collecting, I'm collecting essentially in Bitcoin.
And then are you sending the bar the Bitcoin, or
they want the fiat? So that's why I said I
want the fiat.
Yeah. So but that's why I use my card, and I closed out with them the other night. But for them, and for a lot, for the community that I did in the last year, like a lot of them was their first time using Lightning. Like they don't use it often.
Like the people who attended the events,
people who attended. So
they've never bought anything with that.
No, and most of them, they DCA.
Oh, this is a great way for you to get KYC free Bitcoin. Son of a gun! I see you.
It's kind of funny like that, but it's not the intention. The intention is to like.
I bet it is.
Yeah, because but it comes back to my Lightning, and I use it for other stuff. Right. It goes out the other way. Like I don't.
Well, and you're setting up the infrastructure, and there's the education aspect, like you're saying, like people have never even used it before, so they're learning about it, asking questions, and getting the bartenders like, oh, well, there's a bunch of people that showed up at our bar to spend Bitcoin for beer. Wait, what's this whole Bitcoin thing about?
And it does, and that's how the conversation's built. So it's more from the education side. It's just so everyone gets a feel for it. Because like I said, it's very hard to have someone just jump in right away if they have no experience or never done anything with Bitcoin, you know? So when they see it, it's like, oh, okay. Then they kind of get more engaging conversations like, oh, so how does this go? And how does this go? And then the questions, you know, they come building from that. And it was nice too, because the community too, like a lot of people who attend these meetups out here, the Bitcoin meetups, they don't spend Bitcoin. Like they stack, they get them, you know, however they buy them from the exchanges or wherever they get them, but they don't actually use anything Lightning. They never actually do any transactions. And there's always a couple, one or two that I have to kind of guide them. And it's nothing wrong with that. They just don't do transactions in Lightning. You know, it's new for them. So they learn like, oh, that's all it is. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Like, and then people like those light bulbs click and like, wow, that's super easy.
If someone's like starting to go down the Lightning rabbit hole, perhaps they're already pretty confident in like Bitcoin. Where would you say like is a good, like, are there good resources to visit, or like what's a?
I think it's just doing. To be honest, like if you could, like I don't like all the custodial things. Like, you know, Strike we know is custodial, right?
Right.
But you could actually play with Lightning and spend Jack's Bitcoin. You just have to use yours.
Right. Because you can give them.
It is KYC though. I don't like championing KYC stuff, but like if someone really wants to and they're unsure of, and then, you know, they've been stacking, let's say, Bitcoin on the side and they don't want to open up channels they don't want to do.
Right.
You know, Cash App, you could do the same thing with. Like you could spend other people's Bitcoin and use Lightning to see how it works, like without having to spend your Bitcoin.
Yeah. Cash App added Lightning recently, receiving too. Yeah. There was just send for a bit.
So like now, like I'm just saying, so like, again, I'm not a big fan of the custodials, but there is that useful side. Like if someone wants to, that would be an approach.
What do you have a thought? Do you have a take on Cash App and other like competing layer 2s to Lightning, and like if they could be a threat to Lightning, like let's like a custodial? Because I mean, truly, Cash App, like if I can fulfill a Lightning invoice, but I can also just, if you're a Cash App customer, I can just send you Bitcoin in Cash App and they just go and like adjust their little ledger.
Again, it's custodial. I mean, right off the bat, you could be rugged at any time and they could just lock you out.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's no different. Like, what Bitcoin or fiat, it doesn't make a difference. Like you're still you're still subject to their rules.
Right. You know, it's not your money.
Yeah, it's not your money, and they could block a transaction. Like, you know, they are the guardian in a sense. So like, so that's
their money. Your IOU.
Yeah. And, you know, you're using the rails just because they say like, oh yeah, we're using Lightning as rails when we're Bitcoin. Like that's not the full picture. Like it's easy marketing word salad to, you know, spin out there. But again, there was a guy on Twitter, I forget his name. He had a transaction that he was trying to donate to a developer or something like that using Strike, and they blocked him and stopped his account for a while. And I don't remember the name of the tweet, but like that can happen. That's my point. Just because you're using Bitcoin like in that custodial fashion, that's what you're subject to. You are still subject to the same thing. If you're brick and store and you're a merchant, you know, just because you want to take those transactions, like if you don't do it in your own self-sovereign way, like you're subject to the same rules.
Right.
You're playing by, and so again, like going back to your question with Lightning and that layer 2, like, yeah, these guys will facilitate it. It's good knowledge and helping people get on board and get out there and see what it's like to use it. But from a merchant side, you're still subject to the same thing. Like, you know, a fiat transaction or a product you sold, that bank doesn't like it. They call you and say, hey, we don't like your business. We're cutting you off.
Right.
Cash out.
And they're exposed, like businesses today are exposed to that with their fiat,
with the fiat,
custodial fiat, because you know no one takes cash anymore because they're worried about their employees stealing from them or getting counterfeit cash or
anything,
myriad reasons.
So and then again, these guys come in and like we mentioned, Square is going to do it. You know, blah, they're all going to have it. It's going to be.
That's like, see, I'm worried that like it's going to like Cash App, for example, and like I like what Square is like, Square and Block. Square, I don't know, there's like 14 names.
Well, the same thing.
The merchant side, Square is their merchant side business. Like Square's going to add Bitcoin Lightning for sure. It's not a matter of if, but when. And I'm worried that they're going to incentivize people to hold the Bitcoin there. That's in Cash App's or Block's wallet. But I have hope, because Block is also working on the TBD protocol and their own hardware wallet.
Yeah, the whole hardware.
So maybe, just maybe, they'll have like an encourage to be like, hey, withdraw to your own Cash App hardware wallet or block wallet.
But see, we hope so that too. But I guess if you're still running through their services and systems, right? Can they still block it at that point?
You're still blocked until it gets to your wallet,
Still,
right?
You know what I mean? So like,
but if you're a business accepting credit cards, like you already are dealing with that, right? But then they're like using like they're not getting the full benefits of Bitcoin, because it's not completely censorship resistant at that point.
So that's why I try and help a little bit when merchants do ask about it and educate, like, you know, just because you're going to take Bitcoin, if you're still using any type of Square or even Strike, let's say, like, you're still subject to those rules. Like, but when I try to show them is like, here's how you can actually take it to your own wallet. Like, no one could stop you from doing this. Like,
but that's a different conversation though, right? Because you're asking a merchant two different questions. Do you want to take the world's best money, and do you want to run your own payment infrastructure?
Yeah.
Like they aren't they kind of have to be. I mean, at least in my understanding, like if you want to really get the world's best money, you need to run your own payment infrastructure. But like that's not going to be practical for every.
No, of course not.
So it's like that's a lot to ask. It's like, shoot, even if I could just get them here, like the first part of like, do you want to accept the world's best money? Like that's a win, right? It's like two different battles almost.
It is, and I think that's why like I try and help them with the merchants. Like, and this doesn't have to be just a brick and mortar store. This could be online. This could be anybody who's a gig worker. Like I think at this point in time, you should at least be exploring how do you take these Bitcoin payments. Like, how do I accept Bitcoin? And think about it right now. Like, if you were a business and you come out and like, you know, also you take, you know, payments, like you're not going to get flooded with $10,000 worth of payments of Bitcoin in the month.
I don't know, dude. That's what Ben Justman said, dude. He said he started taking Bitcoin for his wine and his business blew up. I mean, what's coming out? The episode's coming out. Well, it'll be out before this, but yeah.
Okay, so you got lucky. You got a lot of people.
But he also like found a niche market where like people who are Bitcoiners who like wine want to give people who it's really I don't think it's more of I accept Bitcoin. I think it's actually more of like I have a shared value and I appreciate the small business work ethic, and like because we have these shared values, like that's why I want to buy your wine. And that's why maybe the wine's good. I don't drink so anymore, so I don't know. But
so I think like that's another topic, another question. Like in that sense, like just be able to spend Bitcoin with a merchant. Is that what you can do? Like I was talking with somebody a while ago. I'm like, well, just because they accept Bitcoin, but if they're turning it back to fiat at the end of the day,
immediately,
I'm not going to probably spend my Bitcoin.
Right, because like why?
I might use Strike and just pay them because to use that as a rail, right? But I'm not going to take the Bitcoin I've earned and just give it to someone just because they're going to turn it to fiat. Now you're a business. Hey, look, you're a business. You have overhead. You have costs. Like I get it. You have to now. The fiat is, but like an independent guy might. I paid for services that. Of an independent guy, and he, they self-custody, hold that stuff. So I'm more inclined to spend my Bitcoin with those type of people.
Right. Like Crypto Cloaks Rick, he said if somebody pays him in Bitcoin, he always hodls it. Yeah. Which can be really tough during bear markets.
And which I did. So I bought the bracelets for my NFC. He did the 3D print for the bracelets where I used for, pay for the beer that I had on. Yeah. I paid in Bitcoin because I know his standing behind Bitcoin. Right.
He was a guest right before you.
Yeah. So like I know he's not going to just go take it to the bank at the end of the day to Strike and turn it back to fiat. Right. Because if he was to do that, I probably wouldn't pay. I'd just give him my credit card or debit card, whatever it may be. Like, so I think Bitcoin is too, like, understand, like, if you want to spend Bitcoin or if merchants too, you want to, there's more people want to work with you, spend with you if you are that type of, like, let's say you're going to hodl it, or even if you accept it and give it to your staff in tips, or you pay another vendor in tips. Like, there's a circular economy around that can be built with, I call it like a down chain effect, or like a down transaction effect. Like you pay me,
trickle down economy
of sats, trickle down sats. But like you think about it, like if I take all that and now I can pay a vendor, I could pay staff, I could pay. Like it's going really to purpose. I'm not just going back to fiat, or I'm not just taking out these quote unquote precious sats of this 21 million Bitcoin and like and just turning it back.
The education lesson kind of starts and ends right there when they convert it back to fiat.
Yeah, but if you're able to build a circular economy and now everyone's just exchanging in it, then people are more inclined to spend like their that personal stacks that they've done.
How important do you think using Bitcoin is for adoption today, or is it more about getting maybe they're the same, two sides of the same thing, like but is it super critical that I spend it, or like are things like just teaching people about the principles of Bitcoin and like how money works, like Is it, or do you think it's super important that people like actually get out there and spend it, and that's like the way that we get adoption?
Yeah, I think that whole hyper Bitcoinization is just a meme. Like, you know, people just want to hodl it forever, right? They want to just stack it, which is nothing wrong with that. That's your preference. That's your preference. But like, you know, everyone thinks numbers,
it's money.
Yeah,
it's meant to be circulated.
Yeah, numbers going to go up. Numbers going to, and just because of scarcity, right? It's 21 million Bitcoin, and just supply and demand laws, that those things don't change. So yes, the money your price could go up. But if you really want people, we have to start using. We have to spend, like I said, we mentioned earlier, if you don't want to spend your own, spend Jack Ma's, so you strike, right? Because I could collect it on my side and keep it in sats. Like, right. I'm not changing it back to fiat. So I could charge, you could pay me through strike. I don't care. Like, I'll take it.
When I bought some coasters from Rick, I paid him through strike because I was like, I don't want to give you my Bitcoin for these coasters. Yeah. Like, these are going to be some expensive ass coasters someday, dude. Right? And he was like, I'm not selling you my coasters for fiat. And I was like, well, we're at a standoff now, sir. Thankfully, Strike had a solution. That's actually a great point for Strike. I mean, it's like, in that situation, like, Strike is like,
it is.
Well, I don't know how else we would have solved that. Yeah. It was like a Satoshi standoff.
And that's, some people want to spend their, Bitcoin and they don't. So that whole hyper Bitcoinization, like, again, the custodial side of Strike and others like Cash App and stuff does suck. I'm not championing it by any means. I'm just saying there is an alternative of how you can use it, and how new people get on board and at least use it to at least see the economy. And I think we have to be able to spend, like, and as I mentioned earlier, like any merchant, brick and mortar, online gig should at least be exploring, how do I take Bitcoin payments? How do I take it? How do I hold it? Like,
how do you get them even asking, like, getting curious about that?
Once they start seeing the money flow, and once they start seeing the Bitcoin transact, then they're like, all right, what? The next question comes like, well, how do I get a wallet? How do I do this? Like,
is it not like the pain that do they not just need to feel pain? Because that's my thought is like, they have to get gouged by Clover or one of these other, they got to be paying 5% merchant services fees. Somebody goes and buys a 7-Up and they decide to pay with Afterpay. And they are like, wait, I just paid a 7% fee to the merchant service. Yeah. I think that maybe you have a different opinion, but I'm thinking they got to feel pain there, or they got to feel pain from the theft from employees, or they got to feel pain from chargebacks. I don't know. Like, why else would they switch? Like,
I think what they're so used to, this is what they just chalk it up to and being lazy. Well, it's the cost of doing business. Well, okay, that's the cost of news, but
so they got to feel pain because they were like going broke because they're like, dang, like profit margins are thinning out, hard times.
But like, if that's your approach, like, this is the cost of doing business. Well, this is what I'm trying to say is like, Bitcoin is now that game changer in that it is the disruptor.
It's no longer a that's just
of course, like, no, I don't have to be charged 7% to take Bitcoin. I could be, it's literally no charge.
Right. Like, and if you wanted to convert it back to fiat, you'd still be better off.
The fees wouldn't even come close, and you don't have to have merchant service and monthlies and all these terminals and all and all these things.
Instant settlement too.
And you get, like I said, instant settlement. So like this whole narrative, well, it's just the cost of doing business. It's changed. And again, it's the education. How do you get them to understand? Like, well, that's it. I pay you for for a product, right? For a Casa product. That's like that's how it goes.
Not me.
Well, not me, but you know what I mean. Like, that's
indirectly, I guess.
Yeah, but like, you know what I mean. Like, I pay for that product. Like this. That's it. There's no other fees. There's no terminal fees. There's no credit card intermediary fees.
It's transparent. Right.
So like, all of a sudden, that whole mindset of like, well, it's cost of, like, no.
10 cents plus 7 cents per transaction plus a 3% per volume plus a monthly service fee plus
anything else,
terminal fee. You got $40 a month per terminal. You got 3 of those.
So
every time you call the customer service line, we got a $40 an hour billing rate. Like,
so like that. So this is really a big game changer in the sense where Bitcoin can actually disrupt in that sense of that whole mentality. Like, no, we don't have to do these rules. And
these are not like just things we were like, cost of doing bit. Like, it's not just like, there's nothing we can do about it. There's an alternative.
There is the alternative, and then it'll take a lot more adoption by the merchants that will actually force the original providers to start adjusting their fees or things like, once they start seeing that, like, their clients, so-called clients,
they're
dropping or using less credit cards because maybe they're taking Bitcoin on, for their products and goods. Like, they're going to have to change too. Like, but it's going to take that mass. It'll take a bigger mass of adoption. But then you also need it's two-sided. You need the adoption. Then you need the community to come out and spend Bitcoin.
You're right. You need both.
You need both, because no one's just because you put a sign.
It's going to happen simultaneously. Like, merchants. So there's like a delay in, like, when someone pays and when you get that money in your bank account. Like, if I run like a liquor store or something, and somebody checks out, like I can't just like go and spend that because the credit card hasn't even settled. And then like it needs to be like the cash needs to be sent to my bank, right? And then that cash has to settle. So
there's a lot of steps.
There's a delay. When inflation starts ripping, like we're talking when people start looking at by the time the money clears, it's lost 2% of its value already. Yeah. Like in 2 weeks, I've lost. Then they're going to say, okay, I can no longer afford to wait for this delayed settlement. Yeah. That's when I think it's either that or they're going to be like, I got to raise my prices in fiat so much now that I'm just overpricing things in fiat, and I'm going to price myself in Bitcoin. I just like don't think people adopt it until they feel pain.
I think what you hit on there is like, if you want to taste, from a merchant testing the water to take payment, like you have a cost of good or service for whatever that is, right? Let's say you do $20 a month in Bitcoin just because you just started taking it, right? You can float that on the fiat side to cover whatever real cost you have because you have to pay whatever bill, whatever. But if they start thinking about it in the terms like you said, well, my cash is going to depreciate because if inflation's going up, and if you think Bitcoin's going up too, you have this other value asset on your books, or you keep it on your books, you keep it on whatever you want to do with it, but you have appreciative asset that will gain over time. So like you can sit there and afford this, to eat the $50 a month or $100, whatever somebody's willing to come and spend in Bitcoin, so you can cover your costs, but on the side, you're accumulating this wealth of Bitcoin that if it goes up over time, well, that suddenly that $50 that I would have been paid is now worth 45 because of inflation, but now my Bitcoin's worth 100.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like there is a good trade-off that, again,
it's the time, like people,
the time preference.
So I like these guys, and I talked about this in a previous episode. These guys came and fixed my oven, and I just gave them $10 tip each in Bitcoin. Yeah. And they were like, what do we do with this? And I was like, nothing. Just hold like look at it in like 10 years, Yeah. And it was like 16K or 17K when I did that. So you gave them a lot of sats. Now if they look, it was like like 100,000, over 100,000 sats. So that's what I'm saying. So now they're it's like 25. If they go and I did send it to them on Cash App. I was like, look, dude, like just one battle at a time, I was like, download a self-custody wallet, and they're like, bro. Yeah, like, give me money if you want. I'm like, okay, never mind. Take the Bitcoin. Just give me the $10 tip. Cash App's fine. But yeah, now if they go look in Cash App, they're gonna be like, oh, it's going up. It's 50. I mean, it's still not a lot of money, but like it's up 50%. Yeah. Which is pretty insane. And then now think about it for a business, like that overhead cost. Now, if you did want to go and cash out because you need to cover your bills, like I said, there's real cost with running an operation. Right. Like you can actually take some of that and go cash out and make ends meet. Right, and that was profit that you wouldn't have had if you accepted fiat. Yeah, because your fiat and with inflation would have gone down over time. So it's just got to start happening quicker. Yeah, like the faster inflation gets, the more pain people are going to feel, the quicker they're going to be forced to adopt it. Both from I want people to buy my things in Bitcoin because I'm a merchant, and so people will start, customers will start paying, but also I will start accepting it at the same time because I'm getting arbed out, like I'm losing value on the time value of money between when I bought the cost of good and when it's sold. And think about it too, like from as a business, like I can incentivize, like, hey, pay me in Bitcoin, I'll give you 10% off, 5% off. But then I guess then you need to really have an incentive. Then the pain's got to be really bad if you're also discounting it. But I'm saying, but if you believe it, like if it's that bad, right? But the point is, if you're and you want to be, but why couldn't you just take it and turn it into Bitcoin right away and not give them 15%? If you were a merchant and figured that out already. But if you believe and you want Bitcoin, like instead of getting fiat for your stuff, or you can float, like you want to be paid in Bitcoin, like I'll give you 5%, 10% off. Right. You're incentivizing the public side, the consumer side, to like maybe, hey, I could get this for 10% off if I just do this, just pay you in Bitcoin. Yeah. Okay. So that's how we're building more adoption. Right. And we're getting more acceptance of it. And like merchants, we're changing the merchants' mind. Like that's what there is a lot of education, outreach, and push. And like the merchants have to be there. The consumers have to be there for it too. Like, you just can't slap a sign and say, I accept Bitcoin. And all of a sudden there's 400 people at your door the next day. You may get lucky. It may, the wine guy, it sounds like he's doing well, but not everybody's going to have that right off the bat. But in time they will. But now you can start to incentivize, like through things like that, or give back like gift cards to your loyal customers and Bitcoin, like some kind of like bulk card.
that'll have sats on there, so they actually come back to your shop and pay you back in sats. So like, there's a lot of incentive. And think about it, none of the fees that you would normally do to pay to have all that done. You're not paying that.
Right.
You're no longer paying those things. Those aren't pain points for you anymore. Like, oh, there's another percent. Oh, it's another fee for this. Oh, it's another fee for this. Again, back to the cost of doing. Well, that's just the cost of doing business. It's not
then
anymore.
Like, okay, a merchant sets up his channel. Merchant says, "All right, Anthony, you're right. I'm going to start taking Lightning." Mm-hmm. Okay, well, you got to pay this channel opening fee. You got to pay this inbound liquidity fee. Oh, force closed. Ooh, that's going to be rough. So, like, I mean,
yeah, and that's why we're still developers still working on the backside, because there is a lot of that stuff too. Yes. So like, I can help them run, like any merchants I want to. I can help run it for them for a while. I don't want to run these things forever for them.
Right.
I could build, just a simple web page for them. They could add their products, and it's for them to test too. You know what I mean? And we could just learn and work through it too. And I could configure the back end for their wallet, so the money goes to them. It's theirs. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to make money. Like, I wanted them just to understand it. Like, this is still, in a sense, still baby step, because I'm, thinking from if you're a brick and mortar store, you have a lot more issues to worry about than taking Bitcoin payments, right?
Right.
This is very easy for a gig, for the gig economy, for a gig guy who just wants something on the side, and maybe you don't need something so elaborate. You could just, let's say use like a Breeze wallet, right? You can actually take all your Lightning payments, or Moon wallet, like you could take that. So you don't need anything super elaborate, but if it gets you into the first steps, and then like, well, how do I self custody? How do I get more hold in certain things? Right. Like, it's got to be breadcrumb trail to get that knowledge to go through. Like, we've been on it, you've been on it, I've been on it. This didn't happen overnight for us. This has been me 5 years learning all this stuff, and it still changes. Daily it changes. What's out there and products coming out and services, and like, how do I improve myself to help merchants get past those pain points. The
Lightning network's got a long way to go, I would say, but it's still, I mean, it's like you're saying, it's like, I'm thinking like it's still it's obvious that it's got use cases, but but here's where I run into trouble is like it's got like the Lightning network's got legs, if you will. Like, it's got some flywheel momentum. Like we said, it went from 1,500 whatever Bitcoin capacity to like 5,000 or whatever it is today. But like, I still hear like there need to be these like altruistic sort of actions to take to adopt it. Like, I need to do this so that my customer, like, I got to give them 5% off to encourage it. And it's like, isn't the whole premise of Bitcoin's adoption that like the incentives kind of take care of themselves, right? And so I just wonder like how much like manual involvement, like how much forcing adoption is needed, like, or is like, and if it's needed, is that like terminal? Is that like a problem, or has the killer use case for Lightning that would bring about that kind of flywheel momentum just not came about? Maybe it's like things like Chami and Mints and all that are like built on top of that, right? Like layer 3.
I still think layer 2 has room to grow. It does. Like, I think there is still there, because it's just the way the response sometimes, like, being able to send more transactions faster. Obviously, it might not be able to do the biggest transactions like we talked about earlier, like 1,000 Bitcoins worth. But for a few $100s, you can get by, and and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
They're going to coexist.
They're going to eventually, in time, stuff will grow. These things will grow. I think Lightning's challenge is the adoption side. It is, like I said, we talked about, you are staking your real Bitcoin up there. When you open up channels and you put it out there, that's real Bitcoin. So that's there.
I mean, that's why I closed my channels, because it's like I mean, as I'm not like bearish on Lightning. I'm just, there wasn't a reason for me to do it. And like I was saying, it was like, if there's not an incentive, I'm not going to do it. And there was a disincentive because there was too much risk for not enough reward at the moment. And the reason I did it for as long as I did was because I was interested. It was like a more of an altruistic thing. Like, I'm trying to help the network grow. I want to learn about it. But once I was like, okay, now I've learned about it. Yeah. I've kind of done what I could.
I think the Lightning Network, however it grows in the future, to be seen, right? Will it be something else with layer 3 or maybe layer 4 or 5 in time? Who knows? The layer 2 is always going to be there for us, like, to be able to use and at least show people in a way, like, here's how transactions work. Here's how, without having to get into the nuances of like, why am I waiting 10 minutes for a confirmation?
Like instant settlement is so key. That is like that's the biggest
selling point. That is the biggest selling point. But like, be able, like,
and the fee.
And
the fees.
Yeah, you're paying pennies to send transactions back and
or
forth.
potentially nothing. Like if it's like, if you've got 0 fee channels between you, you could be 0.
And not everybody, not everybody needs to be a node runner for Lightning. Like not everybody merchant has to. Like there's, again, like as I mentioned, like these non-custodial tools like a Breeze Wallet, a Phoenix, Merc, like you can actually, they'll
coexist too.
They'll coexist, and it could be at a smaller scale. Like you don't have to do, any elaborate setup, but if you want to, there are options out there. Like there's this, this the high side, the low side of it, like the simple, easy side. The worst side is the custodial side, which is going to be the Square systems and the cash.
And they'll all exist. Like they'll people will be sending Bitcoin over Cash App in a custodial manner.
Yeah.
People will have Lightning channels peer to peer
until they get
with their own nodes. People will have Lightning channels on custodial nodes. Like I think they're all gonna exist. Yeah.
And which is
like people will send Bitcoin on chain, but to me it's like, okay, the minimum amount of Satoshis a Bitcoin transaction can take up is like a couple hundred.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're telling me that I'm supposed to buy something for 10 sats in the future, well, on chain is not, okay, I'm going to pay 3,000% of the cost of the product on fees.
Yeah.
Now we're way worse off than we were before, right? So there's gotta, it's key. But I just don't, I'm having trouble seeing where today Lightning Network, why should I run a Lightning channel other than like for own personal interests?
That's just it. I don't anybody else to run. I don't sit there and try and tell, you got to run a node. Like,
right.
The Bitcoin as a community, they take into that whole, well, you need to run a node. You need to self-host. You need to do this.
Right.
And it actually turns off more people than it turns on to it, right?
Right.
So I don't like a lot of the, like I said, custodial stuff for certain solutions, but hey, here's an alternative. You just want to try it? Here, use this. So you can at least play with it. Now you want to come back, you want to run nodes, you have work. Sure, come back. I'll answer any question on the day that you have. Like there's you don't have to run Lightning. Like I don't expect everybody to run Lightning.
I think something like a Voltage is a really
good service, yeah.
Because you're not asking the business to like become technologists. Yeah. Like if you're ever a pizza restaurant, it's hard enough making good pizza, keeping your staff, in order, like ordering supplies, like there's a lot you don't need to be worrying about, like, that's why they pay these fees. And they're like, it's cost of doing business. Because they're like, honestly, it would cost me more time to like have to worry about this stuff. So
absolutely.
Something like Voltage, and they're also not sponsored, but it could be, they are like, okay, well, you have control of your node, meaning that like someone can't, like you were saying about the instance where somebody sent from Strike, like they blocked the payment, right? Like Voltage, like sure, it's custodial in that like it's not your computer, but they can't just like insert themselves and be like, nope, that Lightning transaction's not allowed, right? Because it's your node, you have the root privileges on the computer. I think I don't run one there, but
their claim is that they don't host any of the keys. It's all your keys. It's all you're just using you're buying the infrastructure.
It's a renting virtual right? But sure. Could they cut your whole computer off?
Yeah, the infrastructure. But you're not losing the funds. The money's still yours. Like if they just,
but they're not inserting themselves in every single payment. Yeah. They can cut you off from the whole system, which is why like you should be sweeping your Lightning's liquidity from. Like if you're a merchant, you get inbound liquidity, people pay you. Now you have no inbound liquidity, you loop it out, right? Because you need that new inbound liquidity anyway.
Make new channels.
So you loop it out, take the funds on chain into your self-custody cold storage, and then now boom, you have, and there's services for that.
But it's still less than what you pay for credit card stuff. Right. Like it's still 0.5% in some of those that they charge to do from Lightning to on chain.
That is a good point. So there is a fee. So like, hey, look, nothing's free in life, man. Like if it's free, you're the product, right? So subscribe, because this podcast is free and you are the product. So there's a cost, but the costs are more competitive, and they're not like, oh, that's just, maybe that's like, it's gotten such a monopoly that it's like they just like gouge, and they're all kind of colluding to like bump fees higher and higher and higher. And meanwhile, merchants are already struggling with cost of business. Things just
think about like if you you're doing $1 million a year in credit cards, but you get a 3% fee.
Right,
like that's
$30,000.
That's a lot of money.
Right. And maybe your profit itself is only like a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
So
and if you only a few percentage,
so that's 20%. Yeah. If you do $1 million in revenue, your profit margin is 20%. You make 200,000 net profit, and then 3% fee is 30,000. That's 15% of your profit went to merchant fees. Yeah. It was only 3% of the transaction,
but everything else is
that would have been that's something I never really thought about until just now, dude. It's 3%, but it's pure profit. It's literally all profit
now think about
that they're taking out.
And if you took it in Bitcoin, like you have that now. That's yours.
It's
like
all profit.
If I paid that to you, that's all yours. Now you could go, obviously, if you need to cash out, you go sell it, whatever. There's, obviously there's maybe tax implications, certain things but if you go to fiat, like you still have to deal with taxes and things. You still have to, even the fee to go from, like we talked about, from Lightning to on chain is still, about 0.5%. So, and that's doing that. There's other companies that will do it for you for maybe 1%, but it still beats all the 3.5% and everything else that's hitting that they're getting hammered with every month.
Right.
So now you're taking all that money, and now again, we talked about, you can just keep it all in Bitcoin, right? Now, if the dollar goes down and Bitcoin keeps going up, now maybe that, that $1 million worth of Bitcoin is now maybe 1.5 or 1.2, something like that. Like it's gone.
Right. And that's a whole different reason to do it.
Yeah. And
it's a completely separate, that's lanyard.
Yeah, and then now, like
you don't know what that means. Nobody knows what that means.
So, like now, if you pay, like now you go to, because the value of sats have gone up, right? Now, if you want to pay your vendor that we used to cost 10,000 sats, now only cost 5,000 sats that you're paying a vendor, like you still, you're still making out on that side. Like there's a lot more benefit down chain of building this economy. If you look at it that way, if you don't look at it not in the dollar value like we talk about, like the fiat value, but actual sat value of like, what's the sats value? This is 5,000 sats. Maybe later on it's 2,000 sats. Like this.
That's the light bulb moment, dude. When like you price your stuff in Bitcoin and it gets cheaper.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Because money doesn't work. Well, I mean, money today doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And if you look at like the fiat, the same thing that costs $50 then, it's now 55 or $100 more.
People are brainwashed into thinking that prices go up over time, when in reality, the natural way of things is the opposite, because technology is a deflationary force. So the more efficient the human race gets, the more labor surplus we have, which makes prices cheaper. But somehow, which it's actually bullshit, because that happens, it gives the government more room to create inflation. Yeah. Like the more deflationary our economy gets, the more they can print money.
And the more we need money out there to get back into the system.
Right. Like if there's no deflation, then a lot of money printing would create severe inflation.
Yeah.
But if there's significant deflation from technological force, then they've got well, shoot, we got all kinds of room to balance this sucker out. Yeah. And where does that money go when they printed it? To the very top. Yeah. So that's actually why I think the inflationary, the Cantillon effect, the concentration of wealth at the very top has gotten so dramatic as of more recently.
Was that like closest? What do they call that? Closest being to the printer?
Yeah, the Cantillon. But I'm saying it's because technology has sped up. And the speeding up of technology has created more deflation, which has created more surplus to print money without actually having inflation go rampant in the economy. So then they take that newly created money and like keep it close to the capital holders who have that technology. So like all of the wealth has been amassed to what? Apple, Google, Microsoft.
To the top.
It's all been amassed in equity of publicly traded technology companies.
You look at it too, like you look at where
because that's where the value is.
Look where our cycle in our economy. Like we go through inflation, then we have to go to deflation because we have to take all the extra money that we printed and put in the system back out of the system. So now we have the huge inflation. So like,
but we can't even at this point.
But it's just that it's a game that they're playing, and what they're trying to balance out. Like with Bitcoin and us, we don't have to do that. We don't have to play that game and those rules.
And it's hard. And the more you've been ingrained in this system too, the harder it is to unlearn it too. Yeah. So like people who are like in their 60s, people who've been business owners their whole career, like it's like hard for them they've been locked into this. They're like, no, I know how it works, right? But you were teaching kids. You were teaching kids this stuff. Like, did you find it like was it easier for them to understand this stuff? Like, because they didn't have that to unlearn.
Yeah, so it's funny. So Ryan Bursch from our community, his his wife works at Strive Lake and down here in Denver, one of the schools, and they're like a charter school. So they were doing a pop-up store just before the holidays. And what happened was, like, she mentioned to him, and he's like, well, can they take Bitcoin? And she's like, that's a good question. You know, we can ask them. So they were working with another group called We Thrive, like a nonprofit. They help all kids, like, you know, trying to become entrepreneurs. They give them like,
that's cool.
Yeah. So like so that was the side of it that they did. They'd come up with products and, like, you know, supplies, whatever is needed. So Ryan came back to the community, our Bitcoin community, and said, hey, who would be interested in, like, helping these kids learn about Bitcoin and the banking, and 2, learn about, you know, how to use it, like Lightning, essentially using Lightning in that case. So Mark Mariah volunteered, and I volunteered myself. So Mark did the actual, you know, the history and the teaching about Bitcoin and the banking system. And I actually did the Lightning demos in class. So we had it was on a Wednesday. We had 3 classes, you know, 20 kids each. And we each had 20 minutes. Like, Mark did his thing, talking about, you know, the history of money, by inflation, the banking, who controls it, whatnot. Then he kind of went into the philosophy of Bitcoin. So, like, and then I would go up there next, and I would do like, hey, this is what it looks like. This is a transaction, me to him, you know, that we just did, and there was no intermediary. There's no third party to approve this transaction to go through. Like, we didn't go through the bank. It didn't go through any other third party. It just went from me to him. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so the kids kind of took to it, and they were kind of seeing it, like, I mean, they were 7th and 8th graders, so, like, talking about money and history is not exactly the greatest topic.
Right. Sure.
Even to me, my eyes glaze over in the philosophy and history of money and banking. But it is still valid points, like, to at least have an understanding of, you know, where we're at with our economy and certain things. But, like, when you see the transactions and they kind of taking a look at it and seeing, like, oh, okay.
Did they have questions, or
not in the beginning? Because, like, again, it was just a demo. So we had just, like, you know, it was very early on. So that we came back the Friday, they were actually setting up in the gym for all their stuff. And then we brought all the kids to the classroom. We actually used, in this example, we used the Moon Wallet. We had everybody download,
because it has the point of sale built in and all. Or
they just created invoices. We didn't even have to go. We kept it very simple.
Oh, that's Breeze that has the point of sale.
So they just created invoices. So what happens? They came in before the event, and we just had like 20, 30 kids, just like, hey, download the app, and we'll start to, you know. And
they're like, okay, download an app, easy. Like, done.
Yeah, the easiest side is the tech side of it, exactly. So, like, Mark, myself, Ryan, and Sky Charlie helped out, and we just started loading kids' wallets up with $5 worth of Bitcoin, right? So they all get going. And what was kind of cool to see, before we even got down into the actual room to actually spend it, we were still in the room, you saw them turning around and started helping each other. Like, they were like, hey, download this app. Hey, did you get your Bitcoin yet? Download the app. And, like, they were actually telling their other friends, like, download the app. And then, like, you know, we show them how to create the invoice. So we pay them. And then, like, all of a sudden, like, 20 seconds later, like, nah, man, you got to create the invoice. Go hit the lightning. Like, so, like,
no, you got to hit the button, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, they didn't, like, they didn't even need me, Mark, and the other guys there, like, to do it. Like, kids, that was, like, they just caught it. Like, wow, it was so incredible to see. So, like, they caught on so fast, and, like, they were just like, all right, now they had all this money. So then when we went down to the actual event, when it started, like, you know, they started actually doing transactions. They actually started, like, you know, from the merch side, they create the invoice, and they would, you know, the consumer would just be like, all right, how much is that? $2 worth? And they just generate, and they were just scanning these codes. And, like, within, I'd say about an hour, like, you started hearing merchants, like, the kids yelling out, like, hey, which go, you know, I take Bitcoin. Like, and like, it just, so it was really cool to see the 7th and 8th graders just, like, it just adopted so fast, like, just wildfire. And, like, they were coming back to us like, hey, can we get $5 more? Like, can we get more? Like,
hustlers,
exactly. Oh, yeah. So they were taking it, but it was awesome. So it was really, you know,
kids are hustlers.
Yeah, and it was really cool to see. So, like, I don't know, you know, who did what, you know, we don't know those things or anything like that, but we know some people, like, just seeing, like, you know, the amount of business that they were doing, they were taking all in Bitcoin. Like, they cleaned up pretty well, some of them, I have to say. Like, they actually did probably pretty well in what they accumulated. Now, what they did with to this day, we'll never know. But it's, either way, our goal was, like, to get these kids exposure, to, like, get them to actually, like, ask questions and start to use it. And then, you know, hopefully maybe they're doing transactions to this day with each other, or maybe they put it to some wallet. Like, maybe it took, like, the breadcrumbs of, like, okay, what do I do next with this? Like, you know?
Well, you know what, I just, like, as you're explaining that too, I'm realizing, like, dude, you can't even have a bank account when you're a 7th or 8th grader. Like, you can't, I mean, maybe you can have, like, a kid's account.
I guess maybe your parents can open up one in your name.
Yeah, but, like, you can't have, that's not self-custody, bro. Like, I just realized, like, aside from cash, like, you know, like, when you're a kid, like, you're not even allowed to have money. Like, according to the fiat system, you can't even own money.
So,
but like the Bitcoin network doesn't care if you're a 7th or 8th grader. Hey, you sold me your good that you like. I'm giving you my world's hardest money, and like it's yours now. You don't need some identity or some proof of age or address verification to own.
So and that too, like that.
You teach them the right principles early on in their life too.
Yeah,
like,
and we told them too, like this is real money. Like this is these kids.
It's the only real money, bro.
But like we had to stress to them like this you could back up your stuff from Moon, the passcode. Like Mark and I stress like you guys have
don't lose it
because if you lose it, you're not getting it back.
That's still kids have a problem with personal responsibility. Yeah. I mean, they're kids, so like you've got kids. I don't, so you know. But like,
that's money. But
that's when you lose your cash, you also lost it, right?
Yeah. So there's a thing like when you tell them it's money and it's real, and like we would do like this is it. Like I have this. Like this is mine. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting it back from you. This is yours. Like they would like those you saw a few of the light bulbs stuck with them. Like that's it. Like holy cow!
And that's why they're like, can I have 5 more?
Yeah,
because they're like, wait, this is infinite power. Yeah. I have never experienced.
Mom and Dad tell me I can have this money. Like now I had Bitcoin.
And
like
they don't even know.
Yeah, that was a little tricky part. Like because it felt weird. Like with the parents. Like do they
Dude, that's like
I know.
I mean,
it's great. Like,
I don't have kids, so like I should be careful about weighing my opinions. And I'd be like, what? It's money.
Yeah.
Like you should be teaching kids as soon as they're hey, you doing chores, you're getting paid. You're not. Yeah. And guess what? You want dinner, you're paying. I mean, like you in that case, like it better be a fair wage to if they're expected to pay a third of their dinner, they better be getting a fair wage.
And I do want to bring back real quick too, because I want to thank the Rocky Mountain Bitcoiners because everybody really stepped up to do pretty much donate to this because this was funds that we raised, our sats that we put together for these kids. This wasn't like we went to the exchange or we Thrive or anybody else buy the sats and we just doled it out. Like this actually came from the community of people, and there was a few from the outsiders. We put it in a few other groups, Telegram groups. So I know there was other outsiders that from the donations and stuff like that. So it was a huge thank you to pretty much the whole group out there. Really stepped up and let these kids, get their first crack at Bitcoin and spending and doing transactions. So definitely a big shout out to those guys.
The Telegram community that we do. Yeah,
they like I said,
it's a good group.
Yeah, so we set up the page for donations, and I took it all in, and then we just doled it out at the event. So yeah, and again, this was us self-funding, because it was kids. It was
you volunteered your own time, your own funds.
Yeah. So
dude, that means it's gonna make a difference in at least one of those kids.
I hope so. I really do.
At least one of those kids is like gonna become a Bitcoiner now, and their whole family's future has changed forever.
Who knows? Maybe 10, 15 years when I hear a podcast like, well, yeah, these guys came in and did this.
Right. Dude,
like,
wouldn't that be a trip?
That was my turning point in life, where like Bitcoin, I realized what this was, and like that's began my journey. Like it could be,
dude. I had a crazy thing. It's not nearly as meaningful as that, but like a few years ago, I went home and I was in a high school band. I was in a metal band in like ninth grade. Had the long swooping hair, the heavy metal. Yeah. Like you couldn't. We didn't have lyrics. We just had noises, And but anyway, what we did have, we didn't have lyrics, but we had T-shirts, and we had these like pretty, I would say like legit looking T-shirts for being like a high school band. Like they're pretty good T-shirts. Yeah, got like a graphic designer and all. And I kid you not, dude, I went home and I was at a snowball stand, which New Orleans, right? Like there's snowballs. People don't know what that is. I was at and I saw this guy working on the street wearing my band's T-shirt. I was like, where did you get that?
Wow.
I like, what? Yeah. What? And he was like, oh, Goodwill. And I was like, holy cow. No. I was like, no, dude.
I guess you made it to Goodwill.
Yeah. I was like, damn, that was not what I was hoping you would say. But I don't know. It was just crazy, like how like that, like, I don't know, even like 15, it was literally like 15 years.
Wow.
10, 15 years went by since then. And it just like, that little thing, like it just impacted me so much because I was like, holy crap, like this one little thing that I did.
Right?
This guy, like, and here my T-shirt is floating around like today.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing to like actually see the ripple effect of what I had done. And it was so inconsequential. Like I'm saying, it was a T-shirt. Like, But I was like, you never see like, you know, when you skip a stone, you like see the first 3 little waves and then it's it, right?
Yeah.
And you never see like the 50th order effects of like, oh, that shirt got worn, it sold, it washed, it maybe sold again. It's like, dang, dude, like amazing. And here I am seeing it again, you know?
See, and that's the same effect we're going for the kids. Like we want, you know, we'll never know unless somehow they come back and contact us, right? Like, hey, thanks, you know, thanks for what you guys did. It changed my life, or whatever. Like, would it be cool to know? Yes. Do I expect?
But that's kind of the cool. That's kind of cool that you don't know too, right? Like, it sort of adds to the beauty of it. Like, none of us are going to see hyper Bitcoinization through all the way. I mean, like the Bitcoin I accumulate, hopefully some of it's for generations from now, and it's like you don't do that for you. No, and it's like, and I won't know if I was right or wrong. Like inscription number 265 that says Value Stack Podcast on the Bitcoin. It doesn't matter to me, dude. I don't care if that's, but like, I don't know if I have like great grandchildren, they might be like, whoa, like what? Like, like that's, but it's cool to think about like what could be. And so maybe that I'm tapping into that.
And that's what it is the time, you know, time preference, essentially the time preference of what, you know, the kids and grandkids, like, you know, I have my kids now. They're too young, but, you know, maybe like whether the Bitcoin and whatever, you know, whatever else this turns out to, you know, 50, 100 years from now, like they could say like my, you know, my dad, my grandparents, or my great granddad, they were part of this movement, that part of that, you know, that started. It was kind of, you know, that's a cool legacy to leave behind too. Regardless of like not just being an investor of it, but like, you know, partaking in the community, helping educate, podcasts, merchants, whatever it is, but at least partake in that. Like your kids can sit there and say like, hey, like, yeah, my dad was part of that. Like that's it.
That's what it's all about, dude.
And that's a cool feeling. That's a cool thing you can leave.
Literally, only reason I do the podcast so that like maybe in future generations they'll be like, yo, my grandpa was like part of the, you know, group of couple thousand people that like figured this out early. And like, I mean, sure, is that a little arrogant to like be like, yeah, I want to be part of history? Yeah, it is. Of course, like, but it is. But like, yo, leave me alone. Like, I'm human.
but we are though, aren't we?
And it's a selfless arrogance because it's like I don't even really get to enjoy it because I won't know if it was actually true or all for nothing, and I look like a total idiot until after the fact.
The greatest social, I said, is Bitcoin's either be the greatest thing and the greatest social experiment, you know, of our time. You know, but
I really hope I'm not wrong on this.
There's a lot of us hoping not wrong because
to do my career, because we free time.
Yeah, we've pretty much given up on the other system. So like, we're hoping that there's some, you know, there's lights behind us.
At this point, I don't. There's no. This is the backup plan. This is the backup. There is no backup plan. This is it.
This is the plan.
If you're sick of playing a rigged game, just quit. You know, and that's where I decided to do a while ago. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm not trying to win because I know I can't. Like, you look at your federal income tax bill, and that's all you need to see, dude. It's just like, wow. Anyway, let's see. So we'll wrap up here in a bit. I want to ask, like, one thing I forgot to ask you about was like, how did you like? What do you think was critical in your background, like before that, like, helped you synthesize the pieces of Bitcoin together? Like what was it about, like your experience in your career or your just like in your life that helped you see Bitcoin early on, and maybe Lightning too as an extension of that?
I guess I've been in technology. I used to build computers as a kid, and you know, custom build PCs through pretty much from the late 90s on and stuff. So it was more in the technology side. Then I kind of got into like cellular stuff, building out cellular networks. So then Bitcoin came about right in, like, I guess to me more in that 2016, 2017 range. I think probably 2017 more. Like you know, I could get these apps on the phone, and then like it was just kind of new, but it was just a technology that I knew nothing about. Like all I heard was like I could buy stuff anonymously. Like that was it. Right. But which isn't the case.
Which is wrong.
Which is totally wrong. But
completely wrong.
But you got to figure probably 95% of the people at the time, like that's what they knew.
Yeah, don't buy anything illegal with Bitcoin. Do yourself a favor.
So like
don't. Do it with cash.
Yeah.
Like literally that's what cash is for, bro.
But like so that was like, oh, I could do certain things and the government can't say no.
Right.
They can't stop trying that. They can't do these certain things. Like obviously not knowing the full in depth of it, like you mentioned, like it's traceable and all these other certain things
that
can happen now with it. but like at the time I didn't know anything about it. You know, so like I just thought it was cool and fun technology, something disruptive. I viewed it as something disruptive. I didn't.
You were in it for the tech.
Yes, I was legitimately in it for tech.
Same.
Didn't read the white paper. Still haven't read the white paper, to be honest. So
shouldn't admit that.
I'm fine with that.
Shouldn't admit that
because I'm not good with.
Actually, it's good that you admit it. You should read the white paper
because I treat it as what it is, peer to peer. Like just from here, I treat it as that system. Like I don't view it as like
you should read the white paper. It's short.
Yeah, I know it's short. That's what it says. I know it is. I guess because I'm going
to give you shit for that forever.
That's fine.
So are your grandkids now.
That's fine.
By the time they see this, you'll have read the white paper.
Eventually, I will read it.
There we go.
I use it as the practicality sense. Like I said, my experience and what I do is practical, like the hands-on, like the philosophy and like the philosophy of the banking system and like all that. Like there's people that's what they like.
Yeah. Well, how many Christians haven't read the Bible? So
so like that whole philosophy of behind the white, what the white paper really represents, what it stands for, and like when you compare it to the bank, like that's what people like. That's what they want. Like me, I want an alternative system that I could use without people telling me no. That's how I view it. And that's how it took me from Bitcoin to Lightning and these, and the tools that I've developed along the way is like, that's how I kind of put it all together. Like by going hands on, like you mentioned with the kids earlier, like 7th and 8th graders, they probably don't really necessarily know or care so much about the history of money. But when you start demoing Bitcoin, things start to click for them.
Right. And they understand the implications of it. They maybe aren't so, because I didn't really care about history. I'm more interested in history now.
Oh, I'm definitely in that. Yeah.
After I've seen kind of the marks that history has left.
Yeah.
It's like, the world is this way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why it's this way. Like history gets more exciting the more you can tie things together and sort of see how they're all connected.
Yeah. And I will say that Bitcoin helped me to that path too, understanding the banking system more. Like, because again, I didn't take Bitcoin as the approach of like, the philosophical sense of it. It was more, how do I use it? How do I use it? What do I do with it?
Right.
And then, like you said, the history side going back, like, oh, now I see why we're doing this. Oh,
now I know why house prices are out of reach for most people.
And certain things, like it brought me back to that side, the philosophy side of things of banking in the system, or at least learning and understanding, because most people don't even understand the banking system. They,
right. Well, that's the thing. To ask someone to understand Bitcoin is ask them to understand banking, technology, civil liberty, like freedom of speech. Like there's a lot of things. It's a lot. It's a big ask,
and you don't have to. That's why, like,
you don't have to.
You don't have to do every aspect of it. That's why I didn't do it. I didn't jump in with the philosophy like, oh, this is why.
That's why it's a rabbit hole too, because you don't. It doesn't just click all at once.
No. And there's many different ways you go with it, from security, privacy, the liberty, like
how
the free.
You get introduced to it, right?
Yeah, there's so many different paths with it. So mine became more of a hands-on, like, how do I do this?
Yours was through tech.
Through tech, yeah. Just because I enjoy tech and being interested in stuff. I wish I ran mine as tech in 2011 when I was building all my custom computers, like all the GPUs I could have been running.
No, oh man,
I don't know how to kick myself for that one too.
What was the first PC you built?
Man,
you remember?
Yeah, I had a Pentium 2. Yep. This is man. Yeah, Pentium 2. I had one of those Cooler Master 1000 ATX cases. The thing was like giant, like a 5-bay thing.
Intel 6th generation, 1997, bro. Oh my god.
Pentium 2 was like my first processor with real.
You built that. Like not the processor itself. You didn't fab it, obviously.
But the machines and the boards and all that together, yeah.
35 micrometer nano.
Yeah,
is it UM? What's UM? Is that micro or nano? The little U with the line. 35 UM, whatever.
Yeah. I don't remember now anymore.
So,
I got it. Anyways, and like I think at the time, like 1 gig of RAM was like big.
Oh yeah, dude. This had a I'm looking at the Pentium 2 max clock rate. Your great grandkids are gonna freaking laugh at this. Max clock speed of 233 megahertz.
Yeah.
FSB speed of 66 megahertz.
Front side bus. I still remember that. Yeah. That's what that means.
Yeah, I didn't even know what that meant. Yeah. That's why I said FSB.
It's been a long time. I got it like 20 years ago.
What's the most recent PC you built?
I don't build them anymore.
No.
What's funny is because coming back to Bitcoin and learning about privacy and freedom.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of getting me back into like FOSS stuff. So I remember dealing with Linux back when like in the 90s where you had to search for drivers for anything. because it's just nothing.
Now they get packaged.
Now they get packaged. Now everything obviously works. You know, Ubuntu's gotten better. Mint OS. But you know,
Mint is good.
Mint is good. Pop OS, like this.
Pop's cool too.
So like this alternative, like if you like again, you're talking about Bitcoin, what it looked like 5-6 years ago. Think about what Linux looked like.
Dude, right? Like I'm learning the ins and outs of Linux like more deeply, actually because of Bitcoin. Because I got into Lightning, and then as I was like, oh, I got to modify these command line. What does LS mean?
Dude, everything became like terminal based. And, like, and command line. Like I didn't.
It pushed me though. It pushed me to learn it.
And the same thing for me too. So now I'm seeing that like by doing that, I'm like, oh man, I gotta get all these machines. I have to build up another machine, like another little box again, because I don't use it. You just have a laptop. You know what I mean? So like I don't have all that stuff. I'm like, I got this 20 years ago, but you know, to get our sovereignty back and our Bitcoin freedoms and certain things, like, I have to go back to that path. I'm building I'm looking for a Dell Optiplex, like 9000, one of the little micro PCs, because I've got a couple of nodes, but I want to keep the Bitcoin stuff isolated. Yeah, totally. And then like self-host a photo library and password manager and stuff like on a VM, and then have like another VM be like a media server, like a network attached storage. Yeah. But yeah, dude, it's like, then you start learning about, and then I started like, oh wait, now I got to get a DNS, like Pi-hole. Oh wait, now I need to build my own router. My God, it's like the rabbit hole. Yeah. It's just like Bitcoin, dude. It's like once you, it's almost like, oh, let me just not even start. And that's why people stay in denial about Bitcoin for so long. Like that's what I was saying earlier about having to feel pain before they adopt, because you're like when you start going down any rabbit hole, whether it's computers, Bitcoin, the history of money, kids, he's like, oh wait, what did I just sign up for? You know? So like you mentioned, like with the Bitcoin and getting in, like take all that stuff, because you're going back to FOSS and you're looking to build all this stuff. Now you see why, when you put it in perspective, you see why Google and Apple are as big as they are. Because they streamlined that out of our life. Stupid simple. They streamed that out of our lives, that all that self-hosting, all that, and now we pay them for them. Now we are the product, as you said earlier, we are that product for them. But like they streamlined that out of my life too. I held out for a long time without any of that stuff. Right. That's why I kept building computers. I had all the attached storage, but now I kind of get out of that. But then getting back into Bitcoin and going to the FOSS and things, like now I have to bring all that back so I could essentially de-Google my life over time, like in my life and stuff like that. You really can't. I don't think you can. I actually like I was talking with Polycarp Nakamoto. He's building a privacy-focused operating system, and like a Linux. It's using cubes, and he and I both were talking a couple weeks ago in Austin. Shout out to Carr and the crew and Kyle and the crew at Pleb Lab. That's what. Yeah, I was in Austin last week, and we were talking about it, and he was like, "Dude, privacy's dead." Like, and I was like, "Yeah, I actually feel the same way. Like, security is pretty much the only route, but there is a certain level of security that you gain by self-hosting too, right? Not just the privacy, but I would say it's just harder to. You have to obscure yourself more, right? You know what I mean? Like Satoshi, Gigi's got that article that says like privacy is not dead because Satoshi was private. So he had a good approach, and also too, think about when he got out 20. Well, that was right. That was also a long time ago. Yeah, when the tools went there. But I just sitting at a red light, and I've realized I had this like shower thought at a red light. I guess it's weird that like every person in the red light is KYC'd, and like the government can real time track every single car, and they know who's in that car, and their phone will tell them how many passengers are in the car, and like so that's why I think like we can there's a lot more tools now from the Google phones and projects like Calyx and Graphene and certain things, and like there's ways that we can obscure, like we don't have to, we can still hide in the masses. I think it's easier to hide in the numbers than to solely just isolate yourself. Hide. You blend in, not hide. Well, yeah, okay, blend in, but you can blend in the masses and still have your privacy there too. You're just not going to put this giant target on yourself, because all of a sudden, like I go and ditch my. Let's say I just delete Google all day and I delete all my banks and stuff, and then I just kind of disappear. I'm probably more of a red flag doing something like that than just having canceling a Google account and having a de-Google phone and like kind of ditching certain things. You know what I mean? So like, and still maintaining privacy to a certain extent. Like it's not dead. It's just changed. The game has changed, and you have to change with it. And you have to, the tools are out there, and it's just how, again, back to the laziness. How much hands-on do you want to be? Google and Apple made it stupid simple, stupid easy for everybody. Facebook, social media, they all did. That's why they're as big as they are.
There's an accordion effect of convenience and security, and we talk about this at Casa all the time. Like where it's like we try to make having a multi-signature wallet, which is you're protecting yourself from yourself, is really like what you're doing most of the time, like lost key, etc. Like we try to make it stupid simple. Without making it less secure, right? And like in the last 20 years have really been the opening of we'll give up security for convenience, for ease of use, because we were trying to encourage technological adoption. And now we're to the point where everything's stupid easy to use, but it's so insecure. And now we're gonna I think the next 20 years is gonna be a pushing of that force back, where it's like reclaiming that security. But we've got to get to the point where that UX is not, compromised. Terrible. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's the heart. And I noticed in the last couple of years, I would say the switch, the more people become more self-sovereign in a way. And I'm definitely a lot of it dedicated through because of what Bitcoin brings and what it has. There's a lot more push of like people realizing, well, I don't need these products from Google, Apple, or anything like that. Like I can do X like this. Maybe, they're not just going cold turkey overnight. But they're learning about different products, well, what can I replace this with this? Well, can I do this with something else? Now, it is more steps but there's definitely, I noticed a push amongst the community, amongst just other podcasts or things I listen to and read. There is this growing push for people that are just saying, you know what, screw them. I'm going a different way. Right. And it's becoming big. It's becoming a lot bigger now. I will say the tools and the applications and and the equipment available is much better now than it was 20 years ago when I was building computers.
Right.
Things actually work a little bit easier.
That's why I'm getting into Linux now. Because like when I was a teenager, because I'm probably like 10 years younger, 10 years younger than you. Like when I was a teenager, you could build a Windows computer pretty good. Yeah. Can't really build a Mac. Still don't think you can build a Mac. But like Linux was like out of the question, dude. I was like, no way. Yeah. Now I'm like, bro, installing Mint OS, bro. I made a Kali Linux with encrypted USB persistent storage.
You've done the same thing, yeah.
I'm like, go into the CIA and plug my USB in and be like, I'm definitely going to be in trouble if I do that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. But the point is, not going to do that on the camera.
But the point is, you're right. That's how far you could literally run a live USB Linux operating system
on somebody else's hardware and hijack it. It's amazing.
Off a USB, and then you can have full internet, capability, the internet and everything, and still do stuff like that. That's where it's gone. So I think those key features and tools and things that were developed are now, like I said, in the last couple of years, I've seen that growing of like, I'm done with I'm done with Microsoft. I'm done with
that's what it was. When they added the secure boot and Windows UEFI thing, and like I couldn't upgrade without like typing my social security number in or whatever. I don't know. I was like, bro, I actually did upgrade to Windows 11 begrudgingly, but I am making a dedicated Linux machine, and like I'm slowly. I think Windows 11 is the final Windows OS for me.
Yeah, I haven't probably been on Windows since because of work laptop.
What do you run? Elementary or like what's your distro of choice? Look at me trying to. What's your flavor of choice? So I'm Linux, bro. I'm a Linux guy now.
Yeah, I know. I know. I kind of feel like that a little bit getting into that too. Like I ran Pop OS for a while.
Yeah, System 76. Huh?
Yeah, those guys.
My roommate has a computer that's done by them. They actually make their own laptops. Like. They make Linux laptops.
Yeah, I've seen their product page and I looked them up. So I ran Pop OS for a little bit. I'm trying Manjaro because it's like Arch based. So I'm kind of playing with all of them. Like I don't have anything one dedicated because I don't.
Have you tried MX Linux?
No.
I heard that one's like the #1 on Distro Watch. Actually, I didn't hear. I saw because I'm an active visitor of it now, bro.
There's so many distros out there and so many different flavors. Like I only play with a couple of them.
It's like snowballs.
Yeah, there's just so many. So I only play with a couple of them. So
I think
and then I use
Mint is my favorite. It's just like so similar to Windows.
Yeah, a lot of them are easy. So now I use that in Terminal. Pretty much I just use Terminal screen in all of them anyway. Because that's how I interact with a lot of stuff with Bitcoin. It's just through terminal command line stuff and configurations. So like that's it.
Yeah, I when I learned about RM space -R/ I was like, ooh, I'm like Thanos now, bro.
You want to hear a funny story about one of those I did?
Yeah, I do.
My first instance with BTC Pay was running it at home on a Pi. And this was about 3 years ago, right? So I was just learning Linux. I know nothing about the coding. I'm just following guides, copy, paste,
Right,
that's all I know how to do.
Right, that's how I did it too.
Just copy and pasting, right? So
I'm still doing it.
Oh, I still do that now. I don't know what half the codes mean. I just copy and paste. Like they just tell you what to do.
Type man and then the code. I learned that.
So we're doing it, and then like I remember I tried doing some kind of upgrade. And I screwed something up with the data. I have no idea what I did because I really didn't know what I was doing. So I was just like, all right, screw this. I'm just going to delete everything. And I did sudo -rf. I deleted the whole database, everything. I didn't backed up anything. So I actually lost 36,000 stats from BTC Pay that was still on. So there you go.
36,000
stats. Because I remember I didn't have anything up there because I was testing. I was learning BTC Pay at the time and just building it up and running it at home on a Pi.
So it was like a hot wallet that the key was
pretty
on?
much. Yeah. So I deleted that. Deleted the whole database. Everything gone.
Do you have the address?
I don't have anything.
Do you know what the address is? Like,
no,
I don't even remember the address.
Nothing. This was so.
You could at least watch it and just see it there forever.
This was 2018, I think.
Oh, a long time ago.
Yeah, 2018, something like that. So again, knew nothing. It's just so that's my first. I learned the Thanos effect on my my BTC Pay database, and I deleted everything.
Yeah, I learned grep the other day. That was like I actually learned like. Somebody said grep in a YouTube video. And I was like, what the fuck is grep? That's a weird word. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that's why I've seen, because I've seen it so many times, like stump copy. Because I literally just copy paste Linux code and hope it doesn't do anything malicious. I'm like, yeah. I actually learned that you can copy code and it not be the same code that you've copied it from. Like you can go into like GitHub, hit copy, and then when you go to paste, it's not the same code. Like I've like read an artical about how it's like a keyboard spoof or something. Like clipboard spoof. But anyway, I forgot what I was saying. I was like reading about. I saw grep in the pipe symbol so many times, and I was like, oh, that's what that does. Because I finally like again going to like. Connecting the dots and being like, oh, now like that's when once I understood kind of how the things connected, I was like, well, why is it called grep? Let me go learn the history, right? So it's like you once you start piecing things together, then you, at least personally, I'm like, oh, well, now I want to know like how did it get to be that way? Because that seems very weird. That's
what it is,
right? And then it's actually like 4 different or G, R, E, and P combined, and it was just easier to type grep
than everything else. Yeah.
And it's like I watched like 20-minute video about like a history of grep.
That's a lot of dedication to grep.
I'm a grep expert now, dude.
A lot of dedication for that one.
Yeah, dude. I'm really good at rabbit holes. It's an only child syndrome. So, well, anyway, dude, this has been fun.
I appreciate this.
Did you have a message that you wanted to get out to the world, or like something that's just you just need to shout from the rooftops?
Nothing to shout, but if anybody does want to contact me, any business, merchant, brick and mortar, online, independent gig worker out there, they want to get set up, because I'm looking to help build and learn too all these tools. Like just because I use them every day doesn't mean I see all the ins and outs, and like you may have a certain need that like, oh, well, I didn't even think about that. Well, how do we solve your need? So if any business out there wants to reach out to me, like please do. Like
so, like what just like to make for search engine optimization mostly, like because YouTube scans every word you say. What are some things that like you could help businesses with?
That setting up a product page for them. So they can actually put some products up there that they want to be paid in Bitcoin for. Could be a service too. It doesn't have to necessarily be a product. Could be a service for them. So I have just pretty much, and it works like a checkout page. Like for any website, it's a checkout page where you come pick what they want, and then they have if there's something that has to be mailed, there's an address field. They fill, the customer fills out.
So it wouldn't really interrupt their normal business flow.
No, it's
so
just
if someone wants to accept Bitcoin for their business, like a product service. They want to run a node.
They don't have to run the node. I'll run it for them. No, I'll run it off my side.
What if they want to run one?
Then I'll walk them through the steps for how to do it. Yeah. I don't want to run for these people forever. Right. I want them to become self-sovereign and do it. But, not everybody wants to jump in right away like that. So I'll help them I'll run the node so they can see, get a feel for it. They could put the hardware wallets if they want to do on-chain transactions. So it's all that money goes to them. So like they get to experience, and then they get the first taste. And then if they feel comfortable and they want to, they want to get off this, out of my system, they want to do it, I'll help them with that too.
And so for someone, let's say a merchant's watching this in like, I don't know, another country or something, like, could you give them like an idea of like, what is like a, easy step to follow? Like, what should they learn first to like, if they want to start accepting Bitcoin? Like if there's a pretty easy thing, like
if they have something very simple and easy, they don't need to set up, obviously any like a Breeze app, right? They could, you could do that in person with, where they are right now. They could just use a Breeze app and they could,
they could download Breeze and just show the QR code. And then here, give me the thing.
Yeah,
and here's
and you can pay them, right? Then they don't
need to worry about liquidity, inbound capacity, none of that stuff.
And Breeze takes care of
and it is self custody too.
Yes, that you can back up and stuff off of that. So it's at least a good first step to at least get your feet wet. Like you
decide if you want to even go further.
Again, not every business and merchant guy out there needs a full BTC Pay setup and a full merchant suite setup. And some do, some don't, and some don't. So it just depends where you are on the scale, where you are for yourself and for your
if
business.
You're just a guy like a taco stand, Breeze app might work. Yeah. If you have a restaurant that you have multiple servers with multiple point of sale systems that you need a centralized relay of the invoices,
and you want to get and you have the systems and you have certain product pages and more list of items, like then maybe this type of setup is for you. So again,
online stores capable too, right?
Yep, online store. So it's just a web page. It's a web link. Right. Essentially, it's just a web page. So here's your web page. You can embed it into your current system right now, and you can just click on it, and then anybody can come click, and they pay you, and I'll help handhold you through all the steps for a merchant. This way, you can take your money. It's yours. I don't want it.
Hold their hand, not their Bitcoin.
That's it. There you go. Hold their hand, not their Bitcoin. So yeah, it's for them. Like this is literally, and again, it's my learning experience too, because like a lot of these tools that I've been using for a few years, like they're not polished. So if merchant might have certain needs, and like, can I facilitate that? If not, like, what's great about BTC Pay is like you could talk with the devs. Hey, I'm getting a lot of requests for this. Can we, is this something you guys could work? Is it even doable? There's certain things that like IBEX does, or who's the other one? I'm trying to think. Like they have these terminals, CoinOS.
Or no?
They have CoinOS, but they're more terminal. Like they just give you a terminal. Like what's nice with BTC Pay, they can really customize it to like itemize stuff. And I think these other guys will get, they'll get on board with it, and they'll give you an itemized cart and screen and certain things. It'll happen, these, because they're all open. Most of these is open source tools anyway. They all just kind of look around and see what each other are doing. So, which is nice. That's also nice too about this, the community and the tools that are out there, because a lot of it is open source. It's open source, so they can all just copy and tweak it to their needs.
Building off the work of each other. Yeah.
So it does help. So like again, for me, it's a learning experience too, because now I can see it. All right. Yeah, this needs to be fixed, or this is not so user friendly. Let's say, like, how do we make it better? And at least as a developer, I can go talk to, like, can you call, merchant services, like, hey, your terminal sucks. Like, what are you gonna do? Did you try rebooting your terminal? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
did you unplug it and plug it back in? That usually works. Did you try blowing in it?
So stuff like that. But yes, so if you want to reach out to me, like, my website is cryptobeerkings.co. You can fill out just that, or just info@cryptobeerkings.co as well.
And then where you're on social media or not?
No social media. Never been.
Smart.
Never been. Not even on Nostr yet. The new hot trend that's flying around. So I'm not even on that either. So so I'm an oddity where I'm an in-person meet, or like I said, through the website cryptobeerkings.co.
There's your email or something on there too.
Yeah, there's a contact form embedded on every page, so they could just fill it out and it'll come right to me.
Cool.
And then anything you want.
What will the capacity of the Lightning Network be by the end of the year? We're in February. What do you think?
We're at 5,500 Bitcoin. I think we could get close to 8,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year.
That's a lot.
I think so.
What about by the end of the decade?
Oh, jeez.
I mean, just entertain that. It's more like in 2035, we can look back and be like, damn, we were really close or really not.
These guys are two knuckleheads. What the hell are they talking about?
Yeah. Well, it gives you an idea of like where we think things are today.
So, all right. So, if we go to the end of the year, so what year was we going to say 5 years from now? Or
2030, the end of 2029, December 31st.
How many Bitcoin
How many Bitcoin are locked in channels?
I'm going over 200,000.
Over 200,000. Still really small.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to say over 1 million.
Wow. You really going up?
Over 1 million.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's still only 5% of the network, right? Mm-hmm. Or I guess it would be more than that, because I might have made an idiot of myself just now in 50 years, because there's a lot of Bitcoin that are lost. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Bitcoin that aren't in circulation yet.
So
there's a lot that are in Satoshi's wallet.
So my 200,000 is not there yet.
It's probably like the Price is Right method. It's probably like 200,001, Bob. Or it's Drew now to give some, timing to this episode. It's not even Bob Barker anymore. So,
oh man, yeah.
Drew Carey now.
Yeah, he took over from.
Might even be a new person, but all right. Well, didn't think we were going to get to the Price is Right here, but we did. So
because the Price is Right to buy Bitcoin. There you go.
The price is always right to buy Bitcoin. That's a great way to set us up. Well, Anthony, thanks again for coming on and coming to set up. You guys should see the other side of the camera right now. This is unbelievable.
Really professionally legit right here. I'm glad I shaved, as I said.
Check out Dez Cory Media, who you will see the beauty that is this production. After it's all done, Corey is sitting behind the camera, made this absolutely amazing setup here happen.
Yeah, thank you to Corey. Thank you to Zach. Thank you for hosting me today. It's been a lot of fun. It's always good.
We're just out here trying to teach a thing or two about Bitcoin, talking about things twos.
Yep, trying to help some people along the way, right? Getting out there. So,
well, there'll be like links and all in the description. So thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, and you made it this far.
I appreciate you guys.
You're probably not actually watching. It's playing in the background somewhere. So, but this has been Value Stack Podcast with Anthony Feliciano.
Yep. Thank you, Zach.